Back in March, you might remember that Tailscale acquired Border Zero to help us build a more modern, usable approach to privileged access management. Well, I'm pleased to announce that Tailscale PAM Beta is now available, and you can try it for free for up to 6 users. Details on how to join the waitlist are in the description down below. In today's video, though, I want to walk you through some of the basics of Tailscale PAM, things like what it is, how to set it up, and then towards the end of the video, I'll show you how you can use remote desktop directly from your browser using Tailscale PAM. So Xinglu is the product manager for Tailscale PAM, and I wanted to ask him what Tailscale PAM is.
So PAM stands for Privileged Access Management. Essentially, Tailscale PAM allows users to connect to resources within their infrastructure and also gives admins the ability to view and audit everything that goes on when it comes to user access.
And so what are the typical customer problems that led us to build this?
So from a security aspect, we found that there is 2 main issues we wanted to solve. One was broad standing privilege to systems within a company's infrastructure. And second was the large base of shared credentials. So with PAM, we can solve both problems at the same time. We can have granular access and time-bound and specific access for specific users. And also, we manage the credentials in a way that users will never be exposed to them, and they'll never have to think about the credentials. It's all done in the background for them.
So what can PAM control that a typical network policy can't?
In a standard network policy, the most you can really do is limit users to specific machines. In PAM, you can go deeper with that with in-app permission controls. So for example, in a database, we can set up permissions to say this user can only use these keywords or cannot use these other keywords. So you can have a policy where a user can view and write to a database, but they cannot delete rows from a database.
Now, Tailscale PAM Beta is obviously in beta. What should customers expect from the beta period?
So with Tailscale PAM Beta, we're bringing over most of the great features from Border Zero, now integrated fully into the Tailscale admin console that everyone is familiar with. You can access and manage your connectors. You can manage the services that you're trying to connect to. So that could be databases or SSH or a variety of other ones. You can look at logs and video or text playback of sessions. And you can use the browser client for those users that don't want to or aren't able to download a desktop client.
So Tailscale PAM uses a connector-based model rather than requiring an agent on every resource. Talk to me a little bit about why we made that decision.
One of the most important things for us was ease of use and ease of setup. By having a connector-based model, you only need to deploy a handful of connectors, usually per region, and not have to set up every single end service that you're trying to connect to.
Well, let's take a look at how we set up a connector. Okay, once you make it to the top of the waitlist, head on over to your Tailscale admin console and click on the settings option over here on the left. We're going to need to turn on Tailscale PAM in your admin console with this lovely new left-hand navigation that we've just added as well. Head on over to the PAM option and click on the button that says Enable Tailscale PAM by Border Zero. Once you've done that, you should see this screen right here with all of this stuff in it. And if you check your policy file as well, let's head over to Access Controls, you might notice a couple of extra things have been added into that file as well. For example, the tag owner of tag Border Zero managed has been added, along with this auto approvers rule as well. These are necessary for PAM to do its thing and manage the services that it creates behind the scenes. Once you're happy with your policy file, we're going to want to add a connector, and we do that by heading over to Network and then Connectors. Now, a connector is an application-aware identity proxy for PAM, and this basically enables granular identity-aware access to all of your private resources. So this is the thing that's responsible for establishing the session between your Tailnet clients and your Tailnet sockets, so things like SSH and the database, Kubernetes, remote desktop, Windows nodes, that kind of thing. These connectors can run on all sorts of different targets. I'm going to run mine today on a Debian 13 Linux box. It's a one-line command, really easy to install, but we do support the other targets I just showed you on the screen there as well. Once I have the shell command on my clipboard, I'll just paste it. I'm SSH'd into that Linux box right here. And this is the only command line stuff we're going to have to do today. So let's go install the Tail Zero service inside of my PAM connector node. You can see that's there and ready to go. And we're now done in terms of the setup for PAM on your Tailnet. So let's head back to the machines page. And we can see we've now got a new PAM connector node added to our Tailnet. And also under connectors, you can see we've now got the PAM connector node showing us online as well. So this PAM connector node now wants to reach out and start doing PAM things with remote services. So I have a demo Postgres database that I want to proxy through this PAM gateway. I'm going to add that as a PAM service under here, and you can see all of the different services that we support today. More are coming in the future, of course, but this is just the launch selection of services. And I'm going to select Postgres. I'm going to click continue, and then I'm going to call this one Postgres movie test. And then I'm going to select the connector that I want to proxy that service through. So you can have multiple PAM connector nodes inside your tailnet, of course. So if you have, for example, a PAM connector inside a VPC on AWS, you could then proxy all of this traffic through that specific connector and reach RDS without having to do things like ingress and egress and all that complicated stuff. It all just goes through Tailscale through the PAM gateway. Pretty nice. All right, the upstream IP. Now I'm going to want to put in here the tailnet IP in my case, because the PAM connector is in a different subnet, actually it's a completely different country from where the PAM connector node is running. So I'm going to run over here and grab this 100.104 IP address, which is the IP address my database has on my tailnet, and just paste that in here, and then my username and password for that database, like so. Once I click save, a couple of things are going to happen behind the scenes. We're going to create what's called a Tailscale service, and then do a bunch of stuff on the back end in terms of populating net maps and publishing a bunch of routes inside of your tailnet. But the way that you'll access this database now isn't by going directly to the node on your tailnet. You'll now use this full domain right here. But the easiest way to connect to the service is to use your local client. So I already have Tailscale installed on this Mac. And in the macOS client, there's now a new option here called Services. And I can click on this button that says Open or Open With. And it will automatically detect all of the local clients I have installed on this Mac. One of them is called Table Plus, which is just a very simple database client. And by clicking Connect, you can see now that my database connection has been made, and this has been proxying through the PAM gateway. So I always like to go in here and show that the PAM policy has been validated successfully. So that connection has been made through PAM. Now, the other way you can connect to this stuff is through the browser. You see this connect button up here. So if I do that for a second, what we're going to do is just add an ephemeral node to our tailnet, a little bit like how Tailscale SSH already used to do an ephemeral node in the browser using JavaScript. We're going to add this node to the correct tailnet and then click on connect once we've given it the database name, and voila, I can now see my movies database in the browser. So here comes the coolest thing, at least I think so anyway, for this entire demo. We can now add a new service for remote desktop. So not only can we use remote desktop through the same Mac client option that I just showed you if you have your local remote desktop client installed, but we can add remote desktop as a target endpoint inside of our PAM universe here, and then do it in the browser. Now to do this, I'm going to set up the Windows 11 PAM test name as the name of the service, and again proxy it through this PAM connector node. This PAM connector node is in the same physical subnet as the Windows machine, although you could just use a Tailscale IP, I'm sure. And then set up my username and password. Here we go. And you'll see port 3389. If you've been using remote desktop for a while, you should recognize that one. And then click on connect up there in the top right hand corner. We'll do the same thing where we will authenticate an ephemeral node to our tailnet. And then after just a couple of seconds, there we go. We have Windows remote desktop in the browser using Tailscale PAM. This is so cool, you guys. I'm absolutely, this is something I've wanted for so long, and it's finally here. I'm beyond excited. I know, it's like a Christmas present come early for nerds. That's for me anyway. And so that's a first look at Tailscale's PAM beta. The goal here is to take so much of the complexity traditionally associated with privileged access management and make it feel as magic as the rest of Tailscale does. Tailscale PAM Beta is free for up to 6 users, and if you want to try it out for yourself, you can join the beta through the waitlist linked in the description down below. And because this is a beta, we really do want to hear your feedback. Try it and tell us what works, tell us what doesn't work, more importantly, and let us know what you'd like to see us help build next. And of course, this is just one part of Tailscale's summer update this week whilst we've got our user conference happening in San Francisco. So keep an eye on the channel throughout the rest of the week, and you'll see lots more from us throughout the week. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, I've been Alex from Tailscale.